Before every visible launch, there's an invisible conversation that most entrepreneurs skip entirely. Not a conversation with an investor, or a mentor, or a business coach, but a conversation with God, the one that happens quietly in prayer before the business plan is even finished. Scripture doesn't discourage ambition, and it certainly doesn't discourage building something meaningful. But it does warn, consistently and clearly, about the postures, the motives, and the blind spots that turn a promising venture into a painful lesson. Today we're walking through 7 things God warns us about before starting a business, warnings that, if ignored, tend to resurface later as expensive regret. Luke 14:28 asks a piercing question, whether anyone planning to build a tower doesn't first sit down and estimate the cost, to see if they have enough money to complete it. That single verse is a warning against launching anything, a tower or a business, without honest, prayerful preparation first. Let's walk through the 7 warnings together. Number 1. God warns against building for your name instead of His. Every entrepreneur has to answer an uncomfortable question honestly. Is this business meant to glorify God, or is it quietly meant to build a personal legacy, a name people remember, a reputation that outlives ordinary obscurity? Genesis 11 tells the story of Babel, where people gathered to build a tower, reaching to the heavens, specifically so they could make a name for themselves. That motive, more than the tower itself, is what drew God's direct intervention. Proverbs 16:18 warns that pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. This doesn't mean ambition is sinful, or that wanting to build something excellent is wrong. It means the underlying motive matters enormously. A business built to glorify God can weather failure with humility. A business built to glorify yourself often collapses under the weight of its own pride, the moment things stop going according to plan. Number 2. God warns against moving forward without seeking wise counsel. Entrepreneurship attracts a particular kind of confidence, the belief that vision alone is enough to carry a venture forward, but vision without counsel is a dangerous combination. Proverbs 15:22 tells us that plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Notice the word many. Not one enthusiastic friend who tells you everything sounds brilliant, but a genuine range of wise, experienced voices, willing to challenge your blind spots. Rehoboam's costly mistake in 1 Kings 12 wasn't a lack of advisors. It was his choice to listen only to the ones who agreed with him and dismiss the ones with actual experience. Before launching, seek counsel that's willing to disagree with you, not just counsel that's willing to celebrate you. The friction from honest counsel now is far cheaper than the lessons learned later without it. Number 3. God warns against counting the cost too late. Excitement has a way of blinding people to real numbers. The vision feels so clear, so promising, that the actual financial cost, the actual time cost, the actual toll on family and health gets minimized or ignored entirely until it's already been paid. Luke 14 verses 8:28-30 continues the warning about the builder who starts a tower without enough resources to finish it, becoming a public example of poor planning rather than completed vision. This isn't a call toward fear or excessive caution, it's a call toward honesty. Sit down before you launch. Calculate the real cost, financially and personally. Ask God plainly whether you're prepared to pay it or whether the timing needs more preparation first. Businesses rarely fail because the vision was wrong. They often fail because the cost was never honestly counted before the first dollar was spent. Number 4. God warns against partnering with people whose values don't align with yours. We've talked about this before, regarding contracts specifically, but it deserves repeating in the context of starting something from scratch, because the earliest partnerships often determine the entire trajectory of a business. 2 Corinthians 6:14 warns against being unequally yoked, a principle that extends beyond marriage into any binding partnership where two people are pulling in fundamentally different directions. Two oxen yoked together, pulling different ways, exhaust each other and go nowhere efficiently. A co-founder, an early investor, or a key partner whose values conflict with yours will eventually create friction that talent and vision alone cannot resolve. Before you formalize any partnership at the founding stage, ask God to reveal whatever character misalignment isn't yet visible, and give that revelation time to surface before it's built permanently into your company's foundation. Number 5. God warns against neglecting your family and health for the sake of growth. Startup culture often glorifies exhaustion as a badge of honor. The sleepless nights, the missed dinners, the health sacrificed at the altar of growth metrics. But Scripture never celebrates that trade. 1 Timothy 5:8 states plainly that anyone who fails to provide for their own household has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever, and provision was never meant to mean financial success purchased at the total expense of presence. Ecclesiastes 4:8 describes a man who works endlessly, never satisfied with his wealth, never asking who he's laboring for, sacrificing everything meaningful for gain that ultimately brings no joy. If building this business requires the systematic destruction of your marriage, your health, or your presence with your children, that cost is not a reasonable price of ambition. It's a warning sign Scripture takes seriously, even when startup culture doesn't. Number 6. God warns against dishonest practices, even small ones, in pursuit of growth. Every entrepreneur faces small moments where a shortcut, a slight exaggeration, a bent rule could accelerate growth. Inflated numbers on a pitch deck, a promise made that isn't fully true yet, a quiet compromise justified by "everyone does this." Proverbs 11:1 tells us that dishonest scales are detestable to the Lord, while accurate weights find favor with Him. That verse applies as much to modern marketing claims and financial projections as it did to ancient marketplace transactions. Ananias and Sapphira's story in Acts 5 is a sobering reminder that God takes deception, even deception that seems small and strategic, far more seriously than we typically do. A business built on a foundation of small compromises rarely stays small in its dishonesty. It tends to grow exactly as fast as the compromises do. Number 7. God warns against forgetting Him the moment success arrives. This final warning is perhaps the most subtle because it doesn't show up at the beginning of the journey. It shows up after the struggle, after the breakthrough, after the business finally starts working. Deuteronomy 8:17-18 warns Israel specifically against saying in their hearts, "My power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth," reminding them instead to remember that it is God who gives the ability to produce wealth in the first place. Success has a strange way of quietly rewriting its own origin story, tempting a founder to forget the prayers prayed during the uncertain early months, once the outcome finally becomes secure and impressive. If you've prayed fervently for this business to succeed, don't let that same prayer life go silent the moment it actually does. Gratitude in success matters just as much to God as desperation and struggle. Here's the thread that connects all 7 of these warnings. None of them are against ambition itself, and none of them suggest that starting a business is somehow spiritually risky by nature. God is not opposed to entrepreneurship. He created us with creativity, dominion, and the capacity to build. Genesis 1:28 commands humanity to be fruitful, to fill the earth, and to steward it, a mandate that includes building, creating, and cultivating enterprise. These warnings exist not to discourage the venture, but to protect the venturer, ensuring that what you build reflects the character of the God you claim to follow, rather than becoming a monument to pride, dishonesty, or misplaced priorities. Before you launch, or if you're already deep into building something right now, take these 7 warnings before God honestly. Ask Him plainly whether your motives, your counsel, your cost estimates, your partnerships, your family priorities, your integrity, and your posture toward future success align with what He's actually calling you to build. Proverbs 16:3 promises that when we commit our plans to the Lord, He establishes them, meaning the businesses built on genuine surrender tend to carry a foundation that outlasts the ones built purely on ambition and hustle. This isn't a formula that guarantees ease. It's a posture that guarantees you're building on rock instead of sand. Whatever you're building, build it with Him, from the very first day, not just the difficult ones. If this word spoke to the business you're building or dreaming about, drop "counting the cost" in the comments, and subscribe so the next message reaches you before the next big decision does.